Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Macy. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. We are going to jump into a Q&A, which I'm very excited about because we haven't done one in a while. And I posted over on my Instagram and asked you guys to ask me all the questions, and you really delivered. You guys gave me so many good questions, and I'm excited to answer them for you. So we're going to be talking about micro bakery life. So if you're new here, I am a micro baker, which means that I have a small sourdough bakery in my home. I am baking around 100 loaves of bread a week, along with other baked goods that I offer on my weekly menus. And then on top of that, I'm also a stay-at-home mom. So I have two daughters that are 2 and 3. So my days are busy, but it's fun and I love it. And I love sharing my journey with you guys because I know that so many people are intrigued by this way of living and this business that I've built and want to do it themselves. So we're just going to be cozy. I'm sitting here with like a whole bunch of blankets in my favorite chair. I have my little microphone. So we're like a little chit-chatty moment, and we're just going to jump right into it because I have so many good questions to answer and I really want to try to get to all of them. So let's jump right in. Okay, so question number 1, they asked how I got started with my business, and I'm going to be brief in this because I've talked about it before, but I just figured I would answer it in case you're new here and you don't know my story. So in 2023, my New Year's resolution was to make all of our bread from scratch for the year. I wanted to try to not buy bread from the store at all, and that was just kind of like a personal challenge for myself. And I had already learned how to bake sourdough bread during COVID, like so many other people had, but I just really fell in love with it even more once I started doing it very consistently to feed my family. And the more that I baked, the more that I wanted to bake. And I was kind of to this point where I wanted to bake more than my family could even consume. And so I put some feelers out in around like April of 2023. And I posted on the Nextdoor app, which if you've never heard of that before, it's kind of like a community app where people can like post like neighborhood updates and things like that. And I just kind of was like, hey, I live in the neighborhood. If you're interested in buying some bread from me, let me know. And I was flooded with orders. At this point, I didn't really even know what a micro bakery was. I couldn't really find much content about it on social media because this was before there was a huge boom of micro bakers and people wanting to sell sourdough goods out of their home. And so there was nobody in my area doing anything like this, and I was bombarded with orders. I'm talking like I booked myself out for a whole month, and keep in mind, like I only had a few bannetons and I was just baking in Dutch ovens in my home oven, and there was just a demand there, and the rest is kind of history. I just continued to kind of trek along, and it grew very organically, and I think it's very beautiful that it grew the way that it did because I didn't necessarily start my bakery with the intention of starting a bakery. I just loved baking and I wanted to bake more, and I wanted to bake for the people in my community. It grew very organically with very little pressure on myself, and it just ended up being so perfect. So that's kind of how I started, and we'll talk more about what bakery life has looked like as things have progressed, because obviously where I am now is very different to where I was when I started, but that will kind of be explained as we move on to other questions. Okay, next question, pros and cons of being a micro baker as a wife and a mother. So when I first started my bakery, I was working part-time from home. I was working as a graphic designer, and I was also working on staff at my church. I ran the children's ministry. And so we were at a point financially where I really needed to bring in some income for our family in order to live and pay our bills and things like that. And so one of the biggest pros for me as a micro baker is being able to help support my family financially while still being a stay-at-home mom. Now, my title as stay-at-home mom is very different than other moms who are not working in the same way that I am, but we've made it work for our family. So I would say financially, it's been a huge blessing. It's also been a blessing for me just as a person and as an individual. I'm very creative, and I love creating new things. I love being an entrepreneur. I've always been that way. I think it's just part of who God made me to be. My husband likes to joke that I'm like a professional at monetizing my hobbies, because that's just where my brain goes. I love the creativity of it all. I love branding. I love coming up with new ideas and new recipes and all of these things. And it really just fills my cup in a very unique and special way. And I think it's really cool that my girls get to see their mom do something that she's passionate about, and to work really hard and to pursue a dream while also getting to be with them through it all. It's just so special. Now, on the flip side, there are definitely some cons to it, especially because my business has grown to the capacity that it has. It takes up a lot of my time, and probably more time than I would have ever imagined that it would, especially because not only do I have my micro bakery, but I'm doing this as well. I'm sharing my journey. I'm investing in social media and letting that be a part of my income and my business as well. And so I think one of the hardest things for me is learning how to be
Hey, what's up?
June is banging on the door and I'm trying to film a YouTube video.
Okay, she's gonna go out for a nap.
Okay.
Say goodnight.
Yeah. I love you, June.
Daisy, stay.
Good night, kissy. Give me kissy.
Did you get that on camera?
I don't know.
Kiss again.
I love you, I love you, I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you. I think one of my biggest struggles as a mom who is also doing all the other things that I'm doing is learning to be present with my girls and not always be distracted. That's really hard for me. It's hard when I do have a very long list of things to do, a lot of responsibilities. It can be challenging to be present with them and not let all the other responsibilities kind of take over my brain. And it's something that I just have to be incredibly intentional about. The other thing that I think is really hard for me is resting. I don't have a lot of time to rest. And so my default and my personal struggle is just feeling like I'm lazy if I'm not doing something. And I think that's perpetuated by having a constant long list of things to accomplish. And so it takes, again, just a lot of intentionality for me to purposefully rest. And I want my girls to see that. I don't want them to grow up in a home when their mom is constantly unavailable, constantly doing something, constantly just not resting, you know? And so I want rest to be more of a normal thing in our home than it currently is. And so that's probably another one of my biggest struggles as a mom who's doing what I'm doing as well. Okay, next question is in regards to hiring for your bakery. So over the summer, we moved into this current home, and it's been such a big blessing. And part of moving into this home is that we have way more space than we did before, and we have enough space to hire an assistant for me. So at our old house, it was so small that it actually felt more burdensome to have somebody in our house helping me than it did just to do things by myself. There just genuinely was not enough room for another body in that house. And so I ended up hiring my sister, which was so fun and just such perfect timing. My sister had just graduated high school when we moved into our new house, and she decided that she didn't want to go to college. She wanted to start working, and so it just kind of lined up perfectly. She's always loved baking as well. And so I didn't really have to go through the process of finding the right person. I think it's also a very unique role because whoever you hire, if you're running a business like I am, you're inviting them into your home, right? Like they are going to be an influence on your home. They're going to be an influence on your children. And that's just a lot of pressure. And so I didn't take it very lightly. If I had not hired my sister, I do think that I still would have found somebody else. It kind of became a necessity. At a certain point, I was feeling very stretched thin. So I don't know what that process would have looked like. I definitely got lucky being able to hire my sister because she can help me in the bakery, but she can also help me with my girls if I need somebody to watch them for a little bit. And I feel really comfortable and even happy about it that my children are going to get so much time with their aunt. It's very fun. And I love spending time with my sister. So the question also asked if I take like taxes out, and the answer is yes. I have somebody who handles all of the financial stuff for my business, like taxes and things like that. And they also run payroll for me. So if you're looking to hire somebody, I would recommend maybe finding somebody who can do that for you, because it takes a huge pressure off of my shoulders. I know that she's being paid properly. I know that like I'm doing everything correctly from a tax perspective and all of those kinds of things. So look into that. I do run payroll though, and like she has a W-2 and all that kind of official stuff. Next question is about creating a menu. Like, how big should your menu be? How do you decide what things to add and how much to offer? And I do have some advice for this. So for when I first started my micro bakery, and really before I even knew that it was going to be a micro bakery, when I kind of just threw out that first menu and asked people if they wanted to order, I added so many things to the menu because I didn't think that many people would order. But I quickly realized a few things. Number one, I could not keep up with that many different things. Like, I had over 10 things being offered, and there were a lot of people just buying like a little bit of each thing, and I ended up with way too much to bake, way too many different things to think about, and realized that that was not a good idea for me. The other thing that I learned is that it is significantly more profitable to sell a lot of one thing instead of like a lot of a whole bunch of different things. So instead of selling 15 loaves but 5 different flavors, it's way more profitable to sell 15 loaves of one flavor. So as I grew my business, I kind of whittled down my menu. What I learned is that there's a sweet spot for sure. I typically try to offer classic sourdough loaves, my sandwich loaves, and then one specialty loaf. So that's like the most amount of types of loaves I would ever offer. And then I offer one cookie flavor, one scone flavor. And that's pretty much it. And I still do that to this day because it streamlines my process so much. And I think my customers also know what to expect. They know that there will be staples on the menu that will always be there. They also know that they'll get new flavors of things and stuff like that. I typically try to change out my scone flavor and my specialty loaf every month. So that's really fun. And my customers can look forward to trying out new flavors and things like that in a regular kind of cadence. Also, you guys, we got 2 kittens that are currently locked in the sunroom with me right now because we don't let them roam around the main part of the house. They're going to be mainly outdoor cats come springtime. And they are being actual psychopaths right now, and I'm sure you've been able to hear them, but this is the best place for me to film, and this is the only place that we're letting them go right now. So I apologize. I'm going to see if we can bring them over at some point so that you guys can meet them. Their names are Barney and Robin, which, yes, that is from How I Met Your Mother. If you know, you know. They're so cute. I love them, but they're too psycho for me to show them to you right now. Next question. Somebody asked, do I ever have issues managing my household while also maintaining my business? I got a lot of questions about that, just like how do you manage like being a wife and a mom and running your business and all these things. And the first thing I'll say is I'm imperfect. So yes, of course I struggle sometimes. I think that God made me a very high capacity person. And I've just learned that over time, every person has a different God-given capacity in their life. And for whatever reason, God has given me the ability to be able to juggle a lot of things all at once. But I don't do it perfectly. And there are times where I struggle, times where I need to like reassess how I'm doing things and make adjustments. Oh, here's one of the kitties. Hi, Robin. This is Robin. Hi, baby. You're being crazy. All that to say, there are definitely things that I do to set myself up for success, while also just recognizing that things might change as seasons change. So a few practical tips that I can just think of off the top of my head. I try to keep our household as organized as possible. So my husband and I always share a Google Calendar so that we can both see like what's going on as far as like plans and things like that go. So if I ever need to commit to something, or if my husband ever needs to commit to something, we can easily look at our shared Google Calendar and just know without having to talk to each other that we can say yes or no to things. The other thing that I do is I keep a notebook, and I don't really use a planner just because I've never really found a planner that does exactly what I want it to do, and notebooks are just easier and cheaper to buy. But at the beginning of each week, I typically sit down on like Sunday at some point, maybe before church, and I will write out each day, like I'll write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, blah, 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 and I'll write down what we're going to eat for dinner each day. I'll write out what plans we have going on that day, and I'll also write out what work things I need to accomplish each day. That is so game changing because then as the week progresses, I don't have to ask myself those questions. I can just look at my little notebook and know what I need to do for the day, and that gives me a lot of peace of mind. I used to also plan out my cleaning that way, and so I might write down laundry on Monday, wash the windows on this day, clean the bathrooms on this day. I used to do that more regularly, but I've just found that it's not even worth it anymore. I clean when I'm able to, and oftentimes most of that cleaning is done on the weekend when my husband is available and not working. So that's kind of how I do that. The other thing that I do is like I said, I do plan out what we're going to eat for dinner each week. I don't meal plan for breakfast or lunch because we kind of eat the same things every day for that. But I do like to plan out what we're going to eat ahead of time so that I don't have to think about it. And then my other tip for managing your household while also being a business owner, and one thing that I've just like succumbed to, is that I do not ever go grocery shopping myself. I do pay for Instacart because I just don't have the time to go to the grocery store myself in this season of life. So I paid for like the yearly subscription. Also, because I'm a micro baker, I do very large orders. And so like I Instacart all of my Costco orders for my business and things like that. And it's been very worth it for me, just saving time because time is money. And that has helped our household run a lot smoother as well. Okay, we're jumping into the topic of my bread oven. I get asked about my bread oven a lot, and I understand why. It's kind of crazy and cool that I have a big old bread oven in my house. So somebody asked me how many loaves I was baking when I decided to buy my oven. So to give you a little background, I have the Simply Bread oven, and I love it very much. I purchased my bread oven 3 months into starting my business. So I really kind of decided that I was going to start this micro bakery thing in May of 2023, and I ordered my oven in July of 2023. Now, if you're interested in ordering one, please do reach out to me. You can email me, or maybe I'll leave the link down below. But if you use my link to purchase the oven, you do get a discount. You get the accessory package for free, which is worth $250. So it's a really good deal, and I highly recommend it. I love my oven. There are quite a few bread ovens on the market that you can look into, and I did extensive research on what oven I wanted to pick. And the cool thing about the Simply Bread oven that is unique, there's no other oven like it, is that it has automatic steam integration. So because I'm not baking in a Dutch oven, you need a way to generate steam inside of it so that the bread can open up fully without the crust setting too early. And so for my oven, all I have to do is press a button and then it steams my bread, and it's really nice. Also, I had the honor and privilege of going out to California this past year to meet the Simply Bread team, and they are so amazing. All of the ovens are built in the United States. Their customer service is lovely. It's just really an all-around great business, and I love my oven very much. So all that to say, to answer the question, I was baking around 20 loaves per week when I decided to get my bread oven. And the reason I did that is because I realized that at that point, there was a demand. I could have been baking more. So at that point, I needed to decide, am I going to pursue this business, or am I going to scale it back a little bit and do less loaves per week? Because I was able to bake 3 loaves in my oven using Dutch ovens. I had a gas oven, which means that I could not open bake. So the max amount of loaves I could bake at one time was 3. And that was taking like over 7 hours, which is such a long amount of time. And you have to remember, like I said earlier, time is money, and that was not profitable to be baking that long. It made our house so warm. I felt like I just was wasting my time because at the end of those 7 or 8 hours, I didn't feel like I had enough loaves to make that time worth it. So I made the jump to buy my bread oven, and you guys, it was such a good choice. I can't even tell you how much my business boomed after I purchased that oven, because I was able to do farmers markets and so many other things with so much more ease. I was able to say yes to things. I was able to regain time with my children because I was spending less time baking bread. And all around, it was an amazing, amazing choice for my business. And another question I get very often is, how long did it take me to make the money back? And I made the money back in less than 5 months, I think, in profits because of how much more bread I was able to make. So If you are afraid, if you are skeptical, maybe take my story as a sign. You know, it's going to be different for everybody, but it was definitely a very good choice for me. What is the best and hardest part of keeping up with this space online? That is such a good question that I don't think I've talked about publicly before. This whole like social media thing was very unexpected for me. I started my Instagram at the same time that I started my business. So that was April of 2023. And I didn't really have the intention of like building a platform. It just kind of started happening. And I think that I started my platform just at the right time. Because like I said, I started my micro bakery right before there was a huge boom of micro bakeries. And so I was documenting my journey. And I think that people loved following along for that and found it very intriguing. So I am really thankful for this space. I'm thankful for all of the opportunities that social media has given me. I love that I've been able to make friends and meet people that are doing the same thing as me and just kindred spirits. I have loved every moment of it. It's been so fun. It's also an amazing creative outlet for me. I love making videos and filming videos and coming up with creative ideas. And on top of it, it has become a substantial part of my business's income, which is amazing because it takes up a lot of time. I was so surprised to see how much time it took me to like make videos and edit videos and all of this stuff. It just takes up a lot of time. So it was a thing that I had to choose to dedicate my time to. With that being said, there's definitely challenges that come with it. I think that it can be a little bit discouraging sometimes with like the comparison game or feeling dry of ideas. There are definitely times where I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't think of anything good, or even just like weird little anxious moments of like getting too concerned with like, oh, my platform's not growing like it was during this season or whatever, you know, just putting too much of my heart into it a little bit. But I think that I have tried to find a balance of taking it seriously and investing my time into it while also just holding it loosely and knowing that I, at the end of the day, am at the disposal of the algorithm. But at the same time, I don't handle it all perfectly. Like, for example, my YouTube channel is a new endeavor for me, and I have not been able to keep up with it perfectly. I would love to post a video every single week, but I have not been able to do that recently just because I have so much going on in the background. I started working with a manager for my social media that has been amazing with getting me brand partnerships and being able to like just make this space a little bit more worth my time financially, which is super cool, but also that just takes up a lot of time too. And yeah, it can be a lot. So I think that it takes up a lot of time, but it can also be a very fulfilling thing. And it's just cool to be able to be part of community, even though I don't necessarily have a lot of micro bakery friends like in my personal life, like here with me. I have so many friends all around the United States and even the world that are passionate about bread like me too. So I love that. I love this question. Such a sweet and heartfelt question. They asked, how have I felt God's direction and leading as I've started my bakery and as I continue to grow it? And I think that this has been one of the sweetest parts of starting my business and my bakery, is seeing how God's hand has blessed it so much along the way. There have been so many moments where I've questioned, like, am I doing the right thing? Like, is this the right choice? Am I investing my time in the things that the Lord wants me to invest my time into? And He has just consistently confirmed these choices for me in so many little ways. Big and little ways, to be honest, providing a way for me to buy my bread oven so early into my business. There were things behind the scenes that needed to happen in order for that to be a possibility for me, and He made it happen. Or even this house that I'm sitting in right now, the whole story of getting this house was a miracle in and of itself. And the Lord just orchestrated it to work out so that I could continue to grow my business. And so there have been so many things along the way where God has just said, yes, Macy, keep going. You're doing the right thing. And as a mom who has a lot of responsibilities and a lot of things on her plate, it has been very comforting to me and has given me a lot of peace. So it's been very sweet and has filled me with a lot of peace to know that God has given me very clear signs and just confirmations of like, yes, you should be doing this, Macy, keep doing this. And if he ever shows me otherwise, then I will trust him in that. And I am kind of just one of those people who, if there's an open door, I'm going to walk through it unless God closes it. And he's blessed me so far with that mentality, and I'm just going to keep doing that. Somebody asked me where I get all of the packaging for my bakery. I get all of my packaging from Amazon, you guys. I always have my Amazon storefront linked down below in the caption, and I have all of my staples in there. So like actually the stuff that I use for my bakery is just from Amazon. I am pretty picky about the packaging that I use, and so if you're looking for good recommendations or really just any recommendations when it comes to sourdough stuff, baking stuff, micro bakery stuff, my storefront is probably a good place to look. I also have like other personal life stuff and favorites and things like that on there. So it will always be down in the caption. This is also a really sweet question asking me what disciplines or things that I do on a regular basis to, what did she say? To instill peace and flourishing. I love those words. First of all, I really try to make my spiritual life a priority above everything else, and that is the thing that is going to give me peace and make me flourish more than anything in the world. I prefer to read my Bible in the morning. I wake up before my girls, even on days when I'm not baking or working in the bakery. I wake up before them so that I can have a quiet morning and just spend some time in God's Word. I'm really passionate about studying the Bible, not just reading it. Like I want to read it to gain understanding. And so currently right now I am reading through the book of Acts. My church does an inductive women's Bible study. And I've been thoroughly enjoying it. So I'm studying Acts right now. And to be honest, that's probably the main thing that I do. I think another thing that has really brought me a lot of peace and flourishing over the past year is learning to enjoy hobbies as well. That's been new for me, and I think has been more possible for me because my girls are starting to get a little bit older. I don't have a little baby to take care of in this season of life, and so I've really jumped into lots of hobbies like reading and crafting and things like that, and those things just fill my cup so much. And I have found for myself as a mother that I am a better mother and a more pleasant person to be around when I invest in myself like that and allow myself to fill my cup in different and creative ways. So I love doing that as well. But mainly being in God's Word, being in prayer, those are huge for me. I like to journal from time to time, but those are the main things that bring me peace these days. Speaking of hobbies and reading, a couple of people asked me about like reading updates, like what am I reading right now, and specifically a Throne of Glass update, which you can see right here is right at my table. So if you're new around here, I love to read. I love reading fantasy, I love reading romance, and I love the occasional like thriller type of book. And I'm currently reading through the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. It is amazing. It is epic. I love it, like pretty much everybody else who reads that series. And I'm currently reading these two books at the same time. These are books 6 and 7, I think, in the series. And both of them happen on the same timeline, but with different groups of characters and in different parts of the world. And so there's like a little cheat sheet that you can follow to read them at the same time so that you get the storyline all at once, even though you're reading both books. So I'm doing that right now, and I'm about halfway through each book. I am currently preferring Tower of Dawn. I am obsessed with Kale. He is my favorite character. I love his storyline, and I just love everything that's going on in Tower of Dawn. So if you're not interested in reading, I'm sorry. I won't take up too much of our little micro bakery mom time right now, but if you're looking for a good book series to read, Throne of Glass is so good. Like I said, I'm also reading through the book of Acts right now, or studying the book of Acts, but those are really the only two things I'm reading right now. Okay, the process of my Porch pickups. So for those of you that are new around here, my current process is that on Wednesday, I prep all of my dough. on Thursday, I bake all of my bread. I bake on a pre-order basis only. So I use a platform called Hot Plate, and that's where people can order from me. Every Saturday, my menu opens. All of my customers get a little text saying Little Pearl Breads is open for ordering. And then they're able to place their orders. Ordering stays open for the weekend. And then on Thursday, I have 3 pickup locations, which is also something new since I hired my sister as my assistant. But basically, I have a Porch pickup at my own home, and then I have 2 customers that also host pickups in different cities that are around my area. So what happens is at my own house, we set up a 10 by 10 tent. And then I also have just like a folding table. I put a nice tablecloth over it. I put some cooling racks out there to like make the bread look pretty and all that kind of stuff. And I have a big sign with my logo on it so that people know where to pick up the bread and things like that. I keep it pretty simple. I am currently in the process of building a permanent pickup situation, so stay tuned for that. I'm not going to give too many details, but I'm very excited about it. And then at my other pickup locations, my sister delivers the bread, and then those other people who host the pickups help with setting up the tents and all that kind of stuff and then tearing it down. And I do pay those people, the people who host pickups for me, I do pay them a weekly rate to host a pickup like that, and it's been working really well for me. How did we come up with our girls' names? I love this question. So my oldest daughter, she is almost 4. She's 3 and she'll be 4 in January. Her name is Margot Nicole. My husband and I honeymooned in Paris, and so we always loved French names and liked the idea of naming her a French name. And we kind of had some names that we were going back and forth on, but then we decided to use this app, and I don't know what the app is called, but it's basically like baby name Tinder. And so it gives you a whole bunch of names. If you like it, you swipe right. If you don't like it, you swipe left. But then what's fun is that you can connect your responses with your spouse's response and compare to see what names you both swiped right on. And Margot was one of them. So that's kind of fun and unique in how we chose her name. We both just kind of knew that that's what it was. We loved it. My favorite kind of names are names where you've probably heard it before, but you probably don't know somebody else with that name. That's the sweet spot for me. And then for June was actually a contender when we were having Margot as well. June, my daughter, is 2 years old, and I have always loved the name June. It's one of those names that has just been on my mental list since I was in high school. And the first time I loved that name was when I was watching the movie Benny and June. It's an old Johnny Depp movie. Very few people have seen it, so if you've seen it, make sure that you mention it in the comments for me. But I loved that movie. It's so weird and quirky, and I just thought it was so cute. And so I was like, I love the name June. Now, in Benny and June, she spells her name Joon. We do not spell it that way. We spell it like the month, June. But we love it. We call her Junie, and her middle name is Rachel. Oh yeah, my older daughter, Margot Nicole. Nicole is my mom's name. And then June Rachel, my second daughter, is named after my cousin who passed away. And she was very, very close to me. So we named June after my cousin Rachel to honor her. A marriage question. We're getting deep here. So they say every marriage has its ups and downs. Best advice navigating it when your life is busy. Yes, busy is a good way to describe life. And it's one of those things where you're like, oh, it'll slow down. But we all know it's not slowing down anytime soon. It just keeps getting busier. I think that one of my biggest pieces of advice is, and this goes for if you are in a healthy marriage and married to somebody who respects you and that you have a good, thriving relationship with. But I would encourage you to always remember and always strive to be on the same team. Now, this is really, really hard because I have my responsibilities. I'm busy. My husband has his responsibilities. He's busy. And it can be very easy to slip into this mentality of I'm doing things for myself. I have to finish my list. My things are most important, and just kind of forget that you guys are one flesh and you are working together as a team. On top of that, always assuming the best of your spouse, right? Like, I'm not perfect. My husband's not perfect. We sin against each other regularly. But I do know that I love my husband and I am for him. And I know that my husband loves me and he is for me. And so having that mentality and knowing that my spouse has that mentality too is very uniting. And so even when we're busy and even when we don't get tons of alone time or, date nights or things like that, I know that we are working together as a team, that we are for each other, and choosing to have that mentality can be very life-changing when you're working through a really busy season. I think other things that you can do to help unify yourselves is to pray together or read God's word together. Even if it's literally just like one prayer before you fall asleep at night. That's what my husband and I do most of the time. He prays over me as I'm falling asleep most of the time. But it still is meaningful and it means a lot and it's a way to connect. And all these things kind of help us feel less like we're passing ships in the night, which I'm sure that a lot of parents can relate to that. It's like you guys are just like doing things next to each other and not really like doing things together. So those are my little pieces of advice, and I hope it's helpful. Do I regret carving out sleeping time for baking time so that I can spend more time with my kids? No, I do not. So for those of you that don't know, I prep all of my dough on Wednesdays, and I wake up at 3:30 in the morning to do that so that I can have it all mixed before my girls get up for the day. That's early. Then on Thursday, I wake up at 3:30 again so that I can bake all of my bread before my girls get up for the day. Very early. I only wake up that early on those 2 days of the week. The other days of the week, I wake up at more like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, which is still pretty early, but not as early as on my bake days. And I don't regret that at all. It has always kind of been a non-negotiable for me, and I always have done this ever since I started my bakery. I always made the commitment that I wanted my bakery to be as undisruptive to our personal lives as possible. Now, that's not a perfect scenario, right? Like, of course, my bakery has changed our lives and how we live our lives and things like that. But I am always a mom first. I will always be away first. Those two things will always be my priority above being a business owner. I will take a week off in a second if I feel like my family needs it. In fact, next week I'm taking a week off because I've been feeling like we need a little bit of a break. And I will never hesitate to do that because my family will always be my priority. Of course, this is also different because I have young kids that still really need me during the day, right? Like my almost 4-year-old, she's really good at being on her own and can occupy herself well. And I don't have to like worry that she's like getting into stuff or destroying something. My 2-year-old, on the other hand, will destroy things and she needs me a lot. And so I just need to be available during the day. And so no, I do not regret carving out my sleeping time. Am I tired? Yeah, I am, but I always recover from a busy day and it all works out in the end. Okay, I think we're going to end it here. There are more questions, but I do have other things that I need to accomplish today. But I loved sitting down and chatting with you guys. Thank you if you've made it all the way to this part of the video. You guys are the realest. If you've made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave me the loaf of bread emoji in your comment down below so that I know who the real ones are. If you're new here, please make sure to subscribe down below if you're interested in more micro bakery and motherhood content. Also, make sure to follow along on Instagram. I post lots of real-time updates and more just like daily things like that. I post a lot about my business and more details and behind the scenes and stuff like that. So follow along there. My discount link for my oven will be down below, Amazon storefront, all that good stuff. Also, this is Barney. He came to say hi, I guess. Look at this little guy. He's so sweet. We love him. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.